2. I see a screen and I see stuff. And I see levels, so I'm going to assume the levels are good. What's happening, party people? Clem Hawkins here. I laid in bed for almost, I don't know, a while. And then I realized it's cut the AC noise down a little bit. It's the end of the month. Checks my disability check for like $800 and something will clear it in the morning, 8:25, I'm guessing, and then I can go to the pot club and re-up. I have just under 1,000 points at the Terrapin Station, and I intended on, and probably still do intend on, going to the new club that I went to. And it's interesting that I say new club because it's actually an old club style. I'm not sure how to put it, but I've been going to the same place for a bunch of years. What would you call it? I'm loyal to a fault. And by that I mean I find something that works, I stick with it. I'm not sure when it was, but long story short, after a few great years and things regularly getting better and a lot of, consistency, if not improvement, I'll just put it that way. And then they got bought out by somebody, and the bought out people did not have a grow. And the long story short is I went in yesterday, day before, and I got some. I normally get shake at this place because I like to roll joints. So anyway, I went to the place, and the shake's been tasting horrible lately. So I quit buying that and I upgraded. But I had to use points because I'm broke. It's the end of the month, and I was anyway. I ended up buying good quote unquote weed, and it tasted as bad, if not worse, than the shake that I bought. And then it finally clicked at me. They don't have their own grow, or whoever's growing the weed essentially isn't flushing it, because I've tried numerous different strains and they all have the same funky taste, which means that there's tons of nutrients that aren't being flushed out of the buds. And that's because if you want good tasting weed, the last 2 weeks, I think, is what I was taught. Is it might have been 10 days, but I think it was 2 weeks. But the last 2 weeks of any grow, outdoor, indoor, no matter what, it's nothing but water with no nutrients, but that's, filtered in pH 7. The reason is because that helps flush out all the nutrients. Do I have windows open? Windows are closed, so I shouldn't have any back pressures on my door to make it move like that. That was weird. But anyway, the reason I titled this GonzonVision is because I have these weird. I think for Hunter it was cocaine and the habitual late night night owl energy that you can get when everyone else is like asleep and doing their normal 9 to 5 Joe job. But sometimes I find myself up in the middle of the night. Now I don't do drugs per se. I mean, I do ibuprofen, and I changed the angle so it was closer, so I didn't look so small. I realize my walls are bare, but life is what it is. I don't have a whole much interest in that stuff. I could put something on that screen, I guess. That way it looks like I'm looking at my screen when I'm looking at my screen. But I'm actually looking across the camera, which is what's reality. I put the camera there mostly because I didn't want to stand in the way of the other stuff. But, that's the one I need to be having this on. It says I have excellent stream health. Earlier I did a stream. Oh, I forgot. Oh, duh. Sorry, I got gunk in my eye and it's crusty and bothered me. The oh duh is I've been using I don't know, maybe week or something. I've been working on this gear and getting it dialed in, right? In the past during COVID, I purchased a lot of these items, predominantly like a $30, this USB microphone I think was $20 or $30 from Amazon. I don't know what the boom stand was. It's not great. It's kind of janky, but it functions. And then I got I got 4 computers that I bought. I'm pretty sure all of them were less than like $150. But I got them because I'm aware that older machines are cheaper to upgrade than newer machines. And once you upgrade them, the older machines can work as good as the newer machines. They haven't come up with any new architecture since maybe Risk. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know what my levels are like. I'm assuming they're good because I have both that mic and this mic on, so you should be able to hear the room. But at this time of night, considering it's 2:20. I have a neighbor, Jed, who I think has Tourette's. He has some kind of disorder. He's cool, like normally. Friendly. You say hi to him, he says hi back. But at night, sometimes I guess his meds wear off. But he'll walk around the block like he normally does. If you're on disability, one of the most difficult parts of it is being bored out of your gourd. I used to be a professional I was a union stagehand. I was a professional stagehand, and then I converted to be a union stagehand when I moved to Denver in like 2016. I have a condition called degenerative disc disease, which essentially means I have a kind of arthritis in my back, in my neck, and in my very lower back that can cause pinches in my nerves that essentially make my hands or my feet, or sometimes both, not function, or in my case mostly function less than normal. Right when COVID lockdown happened in April 2020, I had I don't know if you'd call it an episode, but I had a situation where my my left foot was about like 80% functional. It was like 10-15% floppy, kind of numb, pins and needles, whatever. And so I had to, I got it looked at from the doctor, and it was all based something about my spine and my degenerative disc disease, hence the name degenerative, had gotten worse since I was originally diagnosed in like 2008. So I've known for a long time that I had this thing, and I'll be honest, I didn't understand the diagnosis, and I didn't feel all that damaged. I just felt like I was getting older, as I imagined I would. But at the same time, growing up, I remember young, I thought I was going to be a stuntman like Dar Robinson or Evel Knievel. I was like a 70s kid. And then I wanted to be Kane from Kung Fu, which is funny because I ended up living a life similar to that, and also kind of similar. Well, maybe not similar to Roughing It, because compared to Mark Twain's Roughing It, he had it easy. Only in that he had he took a supply of goods with him and his brother to go to the new territory, which I guess it ended up being some mining town in California. But I think about, or when I originally thought about writing a novel of my adventures, I originally thought of the book Roughing It as inspiration. The thing is, I remember about maybe not even a year into it, I remember realizing I was living an experience that could be an adventure novel. I read a book called, yeah, people don't care about that over there. I'll put it over there later. Okay, I'll put it over there now. My head argues with myself sometimes, so I'm going to go link this live stream to my website. Excuse me. I don't do headphones, so I'm more of a set it and forget it thing. And reality is nobody's here anyway, so let's see if this works. I'm just going to do colon paste. It did work. And then I'm going to go here. I'm going to copy this again because I just copied the title. And then I'm going to go here. I'm going to push paste. I'm going to push save draft. And I'm going to push publish. And that means it will at least go to my Facebook comedy channel, or is it my Facebook video channel? Oh, I gotta mute that because I don't want to deal with this. Oh, I gotta get desktop audio off of there. It's amazing, like, or I almost think it is funny. It's roundabout funny. But then again, when you have ADD, you have to learn how to have a sense of humor, because I regularly remember telling myself not to fuck up, but I don't remember it until after I fuck up, and then I remember telling myself, you know what I mean? Like most people would remember fucking up before they do it again. I do it again, and then remember telling myself not to do that again. Anyway, it's like a weird backwards thing. But part of what I'm getting at, this is my left screen that you see now on the screen there. I'm waiting for it to change over. All right. This is a program called OBS, which when I say it out loud, it's kind of funny. It's like, bullshit. But anyway, it's something broadcast software. Essentially, it's a light mixer. It's a video mixer. It takes feeds, inputs, microphones, mixers, software, that camera, this microphone, that microphone, my audio mixer, the H6N. I can set that here or in a room on a table, connect 4 microphones to it. I have 2 microphones getting the room. I have one mic line in that I could probably put push at least two external mics that are wireless, like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. So you would plug that into the camera, which means that the distance of the camera to the source won't vary. That camera has a really good microphone. If you hold it close to you, it'll get a pretty decent level. But you set it to that level for that setting. If you were to put it up on the selfie thing and like extend it and look back at yourself, one, you wouldn't see the screen. Two, the microphone would move when you moved with the camera, unless you have one of these things. I guess I could do that because, I mean, it's the first of the month, but my money's not going to go through, but I can still go look. Wireless. There, lavalier microphones for iPhone, iPad, da da da. Yeah, got it. I'm not sure about this nonsense. I think the reason I saved this was because it was nonsense. And here's why. I look at this price, it's $29.99. Okay, great. But it's marked up to $99.99. It's like 90% off, which is kind of funny considering you can get this thing, which is almost identical. It even has wind protectors, which makes it even better than the other one. And it's listed at $30, but it's only $20. And this is the receiver, and that receiver will allow it to go to an Android, to an iPhone, or to a microphone or line input. That would mean that this one would be like either or. You'd clip one on your lapel, the other one you might hold as your interview. I personally would use a Y connector. I would connect this to the right channel with both of these mics being combined with this wire into the right channel, and then the left channel would be a separate handheld microphone. That would be my way to go with it. But again, I'm just looking at prices. I don't have the money until tomorrow or the next day, but it never hurts to shop. I don't get food stamps until the 10th, so I generally try to keep all my deliveries around the same time, and I get food usually once a month for about $150. Sometimes I'll get $200, $200 deliveries, but I'm gonna be able to get something like this. And part of the other reason I forgot the GonzonVision theme or idea. It's partly to capture the creative process or the idea. But I have ADD, and I have a tendency of being distracted and putting things off. I usually come back to them, but I forget about them initially, maybe. And then I remember, and then I put it off, and then I remember, and then, oh yeah, I should probably do that, and then I forget, and then I remember, and it's just this funny little cycle. Point is, I've been intending on taking that camera out into the wild, locally. I'm going to put it that way. I've used it on trips, but I don't go walking around my neighborhood being Mr. Podcast Dude, because I live in the ghetto, and let's just say when it comes to neighborhoods with lower IQ, mine ranks in the lower. So yeah, I stick to my old roots. Don't flash your stuff, anyway. I'm looking at these things, and I saw that thing that said $300, and then I see all of these things that are so similar. This one's interesting. It's a one single lavalier. This is the one that connects to all three. This one connects to all three, and this one looks like it also connects to all three. And I'm wondering if those are rechargeable. Why it's got that extra Y microphone. Because that looks like USB to small, which would, I'm assuming, connect to those things right there. Right? Because that goes to USB. That's an Android. That's a USB and a Y. I like that they have the windscreens, but this was a different. I can tell that there's a difference in that windscreen than the one in this one, that other one that I was just looking at. This one, that looks like better quality. I don't like this though. I mean, those might click in, which would be okay, or they might pivot. I just don't see myself using those because I have crappy phones, and the entire purpose is to connect to this microphone. Oh my goodness, sorry. My bad. I was sitting there telling you about stuff on screen you couldn't really see because I changed my scenes. That was the interesting thing I was saying about earlier. I was working a lot of shifts as a stagehand, mostly down at the convention center, downtown Denver. I knew about 2018, 2019 that things were getting more difficult as far as my condition. No matter how much will you have, if your body tells you it ain't gonna do it, your body ain't gonna do it. I think I might not have been 20 yet when I first found out I had carpal tunnel in my hands. I had a landscaping. I worked for a landscaping company for a while. At first, I remember, I guess, I worked for a nursery. Yeah, I worked for a nursery, and then I had problems with my hands. Like I would be working, moving big rocks, doing, landscaping. Moving dirt, moving rocks, moving stuff, using tools. But my hands would have like lightning bolts shoot up my arms and they would just jerk open, and I didn't know why. And so I went to the doctor and they said carpal tunnel syndrome. What's happening was my the place where the nerves go through gets swelled with inflammation or whatever, and then cuts off circulation. So that's what causes that. So anyway, I learned early on I had that. So the way I kind of look at it, it's kind of like I got carpal tunnel of the spine, because in a similar way, inflammation makes it worse. It was, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I started doing it probably 2016 or 17. I started reducing a lot of gluten from my diet. I wasn't aware of the connection of inflammation, but my diet was just sort of naturally working that way. However, when you're working as a stagehand, a lot of your job is pushing a bunch of heavy shit around from a truck to a place, set it up, tear it down, put it up, box it up, roll it in the truck. Do that for 4 to 8 to sometimes 12 hours straight. We got short breaks and everything was union, which was cool. And the pay was union, which was a whole lot better. And you only had to commit for a week. So I'd call in, I'd get on the list for the next week. And then when that next week came up, any jobs that they got asked for to fill, they would post, send us an email. We'd have to accept it or deny it course, if you continue to deny jobs, they don't want you. And I figured it was about 2017 when I first, like, Comedy Works, the downtown Comedy Works location. I walk by it a lot going to work, or ride my bike, or ride my skateboard. It was like on the hill going from the convention center down to Union Station. And I've always been funny because when you're a stagehand and you're hanging out with a bunch of people that, I mean, I don't know how to put it. People want to hang out with famous people, and people like us are the kind of people that define whether they're cool people or annoying people. Does that make sense? Like, I did a lot, before I moved to Denver, I did a lot of like big festivals, summer festivals. Before I moved to the Front Range in 2016, I was living on the Western Slope, mostly working summers in Telluride and other times in Durango, or Moab for a season once. But anyway, it was a big Blues and Brews. It was a really big outdoor festival at Telluride. Cake was the headliner. Another band that was like the next up and coming, we're gonna be rock stars, etc. Attitude Band. They had 2.5 semi trucks worth of stuff that we had to unload, tear down, set up, move. It was raining. We had to create tents. It was this big drama thing. And Cake, when they showed up, bro, they had like all of their gear fit on a single picnic table. I'm not even kidding you. There's like 2 guitars, a bass, and maybe a trumpet or 2. You know, that was it. A case of drumsticks, maybe, probably. But I was working backline for that show, and it was so funny because, you know, the guy who was owned the backline company was our boss, so he told us what to do. And as long as you know how to, I mean, I'm a drummer, I was a guitar player, I could tech or whatever for either of those positions. So it was easy for me. It's just like, go get this case. It'll be a Yamaha, this set. I've set up 3 or 4 different kinds of drum sets, styles, depending on how the rack is, if it's a rack mount or if it's all just stands. So anyway, we set up this really sweet, like, 1960 classic Swingerland drum set. It's like that old-fashioned 60s, 50s glittery blue, kind of like this color here in the room, but the glittery. And the drive-by truckers guy. Now, check this out, bro. 2.5 semi trucks of stuff we unloaded. He didn't bring a drum set, or if he did, he made up an excuse because he wanted to be a rock star and he wanted to come backstage to backline and go, which drum set do I want? So he made us pull out these drum sets, and our boss was just like, no, fuck it, dude. If you're worried about color, get color. If you're worried about style, tell me the style. I'll give you what you're gonna get. The funny part is, he had set up the Slingerland, which any drummer of their worst would be like, dude, that's like a studio classic drum set. What the hell is that doing like outdoors at a festival? That doesn't belong here. It's like really nice. So the drive-by trucker drummer like totally shanked on it and goes, I want this. He wanted the big rack. He wanted a Neil Peart looking pure. He wanted a big, elaborate drum set. He wasn't having just a small little, I don't know if it was, I think it was probably a little 5-piece. Funniest part was Cake. And if you don't know who Cake is, you're definitely, I don't know why you're here. I mean, they in my day, they were a very huge band and alternative in that they were very contrarian and anti-corporate, anti-fame, super humble guys. Anyway, to top off the reality that there's 2.5 semi trucks. Now realize this stage is only really designed for one at best. You know what I mean? So when one band brings three in, you have to unload two. Then they, or you unload one, they move it, they bring in another one. You unload it, you put all the cases in the first one, right? Because you have to unload it, you take the stuff to the stage, you uncase it, you stage it, or set the casters on the rollers and backstage it, backline it, and then you have to take the other cases back to the truck, put it away, because you can't leave all the cases on the stage if it's, well, anyway, he saw the slinger and didn't want it. The cake guy showed up and he never, before the guy said, which one do you want? Cake guy goes, dude, look at that. Whose is that? It was so like the classic, you know what I mean? And we were just back, because you gotta understand what it's like being a stagehand when you're in a place like Telluride, because I don't know how to put it, but everybody talks about the way rock stars live. Well, they live that way because when they're not playing music, they're hanging out with us. Stagehands live like rock stars, but don't have to deal with the pain. Excuse me. So yeah, I like I like that I can shop and fix that. But I'm getting excuse me, getting distracted again. In that I was laying in bed. I was like going through my mind now. It's right now 2:46 Mountain Time. My check will probably clear, I'm guessing, about 8. I'm not in any rush to get in anything for Amazon, though I've been telling myself for about a month or two that I should get one of them. Once my check clears, I have to do my normal routine, which is log into the website where I pay my rent. I pay my rent and my utilities. That's up to a third of my income, which is like $250. So it's usually less than that. Whatever's less than that becomes extra budget on the top of the. If I get $825 and I get let's say I get $225 off. 25 is 8. That means my monthly budget is $600, right? Or $150 a week. The end of the month is usually the challenge. What I would normally do, and I'm trying to get back to it. The reason I'm talking about this new club is I was sitting in bed and I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what I gotta do? Is I gotta set up my camera like I do normally, right? So it's podcast. So I'm here talking to you just like I would normally. Well, maybe. I'm gonna figure that out. I gotta figure that out as far as like putting a. I don't know how to explain it. I watch a lot of podcasts. Even though I have ADD, I have an exceptional attention span for some stuff when it's really busy. I'm doing lots of things anything I'm interested in, I notice a lot about that one thing, where somebody else might only notice one thing, I might notice 3 or 4 or more. So when I say that, I'm looking at this screen right in front of me, and I'm aware that the camera is over there, but I do this with intention, because when I look at the screen, that dude's face, which is me, right? But it's looking that way. And when it looks that way, I'm looking at this screen here, which is that screen, and then that screen there, which is this screen, and then this screen here, which is hidden. It's this screen. but because I have it going through here, I don't need to have it open because I can see it right there. That's my resource meter. When I first started doing this, I thought I was just going to help people play video game type podcast stream stuff. When I put my computers together, I did so on an extreme budget. And the target was essentially good enough to run Grand Theft Auto 5 online. I got a super cheap video card. It's a decent AMD high definition video card, but it's only like 2 gigs of RAM, and it doesn't have any boosts in performance. Then on this machine, I got a AMD 6400. This machine has faster RAM than that machine. This machine has a better video card than that machine. They both have Wi-Fi, so I'm limited to what I get on the Wi-Fi. As you can see here, my network signal is pretty consistent, but if I was trying to stream a video game and stream this, it would never happen on Wi-Fi. It's just not fast enough. And for a long time, I was essentially, my benefits were paying for my internet. And then there was a problem with the internet company, and they started charging me for a service I asked information for, and they took that as a reason to charge me for it. And then for 3 months in a row, I told them that I wanted it canceled. They told me and sent me emails confirming they canceled it. And then they continued to charge me. So I canceled that whole program. I deleted the service, and they put a thing on my credit account or whatever it is, a bad mark for me not paying that bill. But I'll do it at this level with not enough bandwidth to do what most people do. Like if I had my own in-house internet connection, which I have had, I would be able to play GTA online, networking with all of their servers while having this computer running, playing the game and streaming. Well, actually that's not 100% true, because this is a Linux operating system. All of these programs work in Windows, but Windows sucks. And just in the basic unit of function, if you look at this right here, you'll see that my RAM has not moved off of pretty much 4.9 gigabytes of memory with a swap of 2 gigs. And that's running everything, right? It's running Resource Manager, it's running the Firefox window and tabs, it's running the OBS, it's running all those other little windows, it's running the controllers that connect all of this stuff. My point is, using Windows, it takes about 6 gigs of memory just in running the operating system. Then you add whatever of the browser, then you add whatever of the OBS, then you acknowledge that that operating system takes a lot of your bandwidth coming back and forth. And if you have a program like this, like that, there you go, like that, system monitor, you can see exactly what your computer is doing. And like the top is my CPU, the processor, and it's predominantly bouncing in the middle there. It's doing alright. This Canon, I need to upgrade it. It's a couple hundred maybe. The interesting, when I find, I'm aware the system is kind of stupid, and if you're smart and you figure out how to ask the right questions, you can often find better than you deserve for for less than you can afford, meaning that you save money. As I mentioned, I bought these machines. This one particularly, I didn't care what the processor was because I knew the whole plan from the beginning is to upgrade the processor to. I've been into computers since the 80s, and it always happens with architecture. Every platform plateaus and then caps, and then they shift to another one. These machines over here, those two that are down on the floor, are DDR3 memory on that motherboard. It's a specific kind of motherboard that only works with Intel because it's an HP motherboard, and they have partnerships or whatever. If I wanted an AMD motherboard, I could get an AMD motherboard, plug it into that box. The power supply is functional enough, and it would run faster, and I could upgrade the processor higher than what I'm talking about. But this one down here, I think, can take a i7 7700K, and this one can take an i7 9700K, I think. Being ADD and dyslexic and trying to remember both of those things, I can remember G1 and G2. I learned long ago, if I can remember how to find the answer, I don't have to remember the answer. I just have to remember the path to the answer. The strange part is, I think is strange, I probably still have access to one of my original email accounts from Hotmail, like before Hotmail, before Yahoo bought Hotmail, before Yahoo was like, there was a time when Yahoo came out, it was as big as Google is now. And in that time, AOL was as big as AOL was as big as Yahoo was then. I don't know. Anyway, I've seen it happen, and being aware of that, they always overinflate the newest stuff, and then they drop it down by prices. And like we saw with that first thing earlier, you can buy, it cost $300. I got it for $29. It's of no particular name brand from what I saw, and anyway, in my head I've got pay rent and utilities, which is an online in the morning thing. I have to wait until 8 or so I know that will all clear, and most days I would probably be asleep by now, but I remember it was like midnight or 1, and I looked down and I still had half of a thermos or a cup of coffee. It looks like it's really monstrous, but it's not. It's like 20 ounces. It's just a Yeti, so it's thick. So, yeah, I was laying in bed, and I was just like, here's what I'm going to do. I've been needing to test a lot of these podcasts. It's kind of like, I thought it was funny that I started doing it, and then I saw Tom Green doing it, and he was doing it as a joke. I'm doing it for real. These are like test podcasts. Helps me dial things in, and also it makes it so I don't have any expectations. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm going to call the podcast... I want to include void in it, like stories into a void. You know, it's like streaming into a void or podcasting into a void. But it's also funny that a void is something you tell people to do if you don't want them around. Like, you gotta avoid me or avoid that. You know, not me, but if you want to avoid something, if you don't want like something, avoid it. But avoid, and my Twitter account has, for I think, almost forever been the same. Oh man. Oh, here it is. Don't follow me. I'm pretending to be lost. Why did it blink it out? Dude, you just saw that I've been here. You just showed me my own fucking page, and now you're telling me to log in. So there's our jitter and our latency. It's suggesting from that server it's 51 milliseconds. And these are, how could I put it? Acceptable levels, but unusual. I think they're at that rate because it's nighttime. Before, how can I put it? My last corporate job was as an administrator for an art college in San Francisco, like network administrating. Most of everything since then has all been based on IP, Internet Protocol. So I comprehend the way that large networks are managed, maybe more so than others. For example, if you were the network administrator of a housing complex that provided internet to all of the residents free of charge because it was a low-income housing project, they would probably take a 1 or 10 gigabyte channel on an internet server and divide that bandwidth up into a set of routers that connect to different buildings, that each one of those building connections to that router would then connect to the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 to 20 or so cameras, which is the security they pretend they have. It's ridiculous because the guy at the office says he can't look at the cameras unless we send him an email to tell him to look at the cameras. That's like giving somebody, I mean, why would you install a bunch of cameras if you won't let the people who manage the place look at them? It's like, we want you to keep it secure, but you have to wear these blinders. It's like the stupidest stuff. And like another podcast or another, I'm trying to change my routine from typing on the machine to speaking to the machine for a couple of reasons. I was recently reminded of a time when I was living in Santa Fe. My dad was really upset because I'd spent so much time on the road. To me, I was traveling around. Yes, I was homeless, but sometimes I was in vehicles. Sometimes I lived at locations, at places. For some summers, the routine was kind of the same. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was pack up, drive, and show up days. Wednesday you'd show up. That was like the early show up. Thursday was a big festival load-in. Friday was the regular festival load-ins. I would normally show up, volunteer, earn my ticket. Then I'd still volunteer for the whole festival because I'm a busybody. I like to stay busy. And I wasn't just volunteering for the ticket. I was volunteering because I like doing that work. Have been good at it for a while. But I'm not really big on the huge corporate scenes or the attitudes that go along with it. So the union was really chill, so it was a nice final 3 years. But in computer stuff, I understand what the networks and how they would divide that up. So it does make sense that in the daytime, I might be lucky if I get 2 megabytes a second, and at 3 a.m., I'm able to get 11 megabytes a second. The other benefit of being stuck in GonzonVision TV30 is better bandwidth, better Wi-Fi. I'm also noticing, I guess this is good, my dropped frames, like earlier today, when I did the previous video that I was live streaming, the thing about the camera and the zoom stuff, I had, I think, 10% drop frames, and this now I have 0.4, so even that's better. I gotta keep track of knowledge of that. I'm still working to find a solution to the bandwidth, because as it stands, this functions, right? But it also means if I add anything to the load here, I'm going to be running into a challenge. And I'm not exactly sure. See, it's only sending and receiving at 400 kilobytes a second, which could be the quality rating on my stream settings. I'm not an expert on this, and I guess it's kind of why it took me so long to get out. I did all right when it was just, you know, have a phone, have a couple phones, interview people or talk to people, record to people. When I first started doing streaming, it wasn't, I hadn't, as far back as high school, people said I was funny, I should be a comedian. In high school, I was a stoner. So I normally would reply to that, how am I going to get everybody stoned so they can hear what I'm saying? All my friends were stoners, so they would always laugh as like out loud crazy with that. But you gotta understand, to mention you're a stoner meant you were acknowledging you were a criminal, which kind of pulls some attention and heat on you. And when you live in a city or a town or anywhere in Missouri or the South, for the longest time, weed was very frowned upon. Criminally, like it was a big voodoo, you know, prison time for a seed type of, what do you call those? Not Hollywood, urban legends. But it's the way we knew it, and it's crazy. It's like my life is very much like a movie, because I have stories that are just stuff that happened to me. But man, if you listen back to it, you'd think I was somebody who wasn't a very good writer making it all up. It only makes sense if I tell you a story. It's a true story. I'm in high school. I'm in Parkway North. I'm into music. One of my better stoner friends is a guy named Monty. He was a bass player. He had, I think he had a Rickenbacker, but I'm not exactly sure. I want to think it was the bass that Geddy Lee played, not the bass that Paul McCartney played, but I think he also had the bass that Paul McCartney played. Anyway, I was in music. I spent most of my time or classes or extra time, or I'd skip study hall, and I would always be in the music department. So most all my friends were stoner musicians. I had soccer friends, I had sports friends, but I was done with, it was Gen X, and I was done with organized team sports. I was tired of putting up with a bunch of preppy socially people, so just so I could have something to do. Skateboarders, stoners, musicians, we all hung out, and we were all pretty much anti-jocks, anti-popular people. So, yeah, that was us. Anyway, Monty's dad was a Vietnam vet, as was my dad. Monty's dad's real name was Ozzy. Their real last name is Osborne. So my friend in high school's dad's was Ozzy Osbourne, and my friend was a bass player. What's crazy about that, during this time, this is the late 70s, this is the mid 80s. During this time, Ozzy is a mailman. I'm hanging out with Monty. Dad comes over. I don't know if he was dropping weed off or if he was picking weed up. But anyway, his dad had just come from the VA, the Vets Hospital, the Veterans Administration. And he had had some kind of something. I don't know if it was Agent Orange or it was something that happened in Vietnam. And a lot of Vietnam vets were prescribed or otherwise permitted access to cannabis. The reason I bring it up is because we're told all through life and in high school that weed's illegal, you get caught with a seed, you go to jail, yada yada. But where I lived, when we were teenagers, and unless your parents were cool, you would go to your friend's house, you'd pick them up, you'd drive to some place, hang out. That's what we did. We'd hang out around in a parking lot in our car, like by a bowling alley or video place or pool hall or something. And if you didn't have money, you just hung out. If you did have money, you might go in and check stuff out, or you'd be out, whatever. And then you'd drive back home. But the driving part was usually the part when, you're getting stoned. I don't know, sorry, I had a flashback when Monty and I can't remember why, but he had rolled this huge joint, and he had this big boat of a car. It was like an Oldsmobile or Cutlass. It was fucking huge. It was cool, don't get me wrong, it was convertible. It was like a Hunter Thompson kind of car. But he rolled the joint, he had put it on the dash, and we were going someplace, and I think it was raining, and his girlfriend Lisa, I think, was in the car, and either he or she had put it on the dash, and because we had been inside we might have smoked a different joint, but we'd kind of hotboxed the car and the windows were fogged up, so he ended up hitting the brakes, and the big fat joint rolled down and into the defroster thing. And I remember seeing him a few years later after that, wondering, and asking him, because he ended up selling the car, and he had taken it apart and never found the joint. I thought that was kind of a funny, interesting story. But anyway, all of that's ADD talk. The story is, Monty's dad, Ozzy, comes home. He had been to the VA because he was on prescription cannabis. And part of what I was saying is, when you're driving, there's a part when you drive around what used to be Chesterfield Mall. There was a big, huge industrial complex we all knew was Monsanto. Monsanto has a headquarters there, world headquarters in St. Louis. But there are other satellite things. This one was a garden place where they grew plants, and supposedly one of the bigger areas where they grew, it blasted light out into the darkness at night, was their weed grow place. Anyway, Monty says to his dad, he goes, "So what'd the doctor say?" And he goes, "Well," and he turns to me and he goes, So mommy told you that I have to get tested, and I was like, yeah. He said something about you had to go to the doctor for something. Um, and he goes, well, I asked the doc. I said, so do I have enough THC in my system? Do I, because he had to meet a certain baseline or whatever to show that he was taking his meds. Because if the VA pays for your meds, they also will make you do testing to verify that you take them. Because they don't want to give you meds that you would do something else with. Because they're like that. So anyway, the doctor said, he said, Ozzy, you have so much weed in your system, you could smoke your blood and get high. I always thought that was hilarious. The reason it's so hilarious, it's not hilarious if you heard that today. You know what I mean? Like, I've been around and or involved with medical cannabis since I moved to San Francisco in 98. It first passed legally there in 97. Didn't know about it. Found out that it had become legal and doctors were prescribing it as what they called harm reduction, which meant if you had an addiction to any other drugs, they would give you cannabis to help you kick the other drugs. I did the shit introductory course for a brief minute or three, but I was never a fond. I could tell you I probably did coke less than 5 or 10 times in my life. I did it a couple of times in high school. A few times when I was in San Francisco and other places, but I'm already speedy, you know what I mean? Like, I'm ADD. I don't need cocaine to make me jittery and bounce all over the place. I got that, bro. I got it. Coffee works, weed works. I do like the sativa usually more, but sometimes I just say whatever and salad it. So back to the other tangent. It's pathetic and sad but funny how long it takes me to loop back around to all the different stories in my ADD story time. Camera. I always had the division of finding. I lived here for a while, and I will confidently, comfortably, and proudly say I don't really have any friends here. I live in a ghetto. Majority of my neighbors are disabled, physically, mentally, or both. Some of them are by choice as per drug habits. Not for me to judge. Like I say, I've done drugs. I didn't like them. I like pot, mushrooms, and acid. It keeps a positive mental attitude. I don't like powders and pills. I don't like being a slave to a something that makes me feel bad unless I keep doing it. I don't know if that makes much sense. To me, hard drugs are drugs that suck more not doing them than doing them, which is how the addiction works. See what I'm saying? Like, if you do opiates or morphine or, what's that cotton fucking word, the cotton mouth drug? Oxycontin. They gave me something like that or similar like that the last time I was in the hospital. I probably only got 1, possibly 2 doses. I don't know. For sure. I don't pay that much attention. I just heard that they gave it to me. The next day, I remember like that they kept me overnight for observation. The next morning, I had pins and needles and cold sweats, and it fucking sucked. Because I don't have much experience with those types of drugs, I didn't acknowledge it as a standard symptom of the drug, the way a person that's used to it, you know what I'm saying? I've smoked weed essentially my whole life, minus some breaks for sobriety reasons or legal reasons or whatever. But I know that when you smoke weed, you get dry mouth, you get dry eyes. Sometimes they turn red, sometimes they get irritated. Sometimes they get really squinty like Chinese eyes. Um, it happens, you know, but I'm aware of it. Someone that's never smoked wouldn't understand that, you know what I mean? And it's also kind of funny because it reminds me of I don't know if it was a cartoon strip or something, but essentially it's kind of a comedic setup, but it's a true reality we've all experienced, where you buy weed and you smoke the weed and you sit there saying to yourself, like, repeatedly, this weed sucks. It's not fucking working. This weed sucks. Right? And you smoke a little more, and it's like, oh, it tastes horrible. It's not working. It sucks. And then you find that you just ate like half of your kitchen and you're still hungry, but you're still like stuck on this weed sucks. You know what I mean? It's like, with weed, with mushrooms, with acid, LSD, that type of psychedelics, 187, CHN, molecular structure, if you want to be nerdy about it. But the more of them you do, the less of them you want to do or need to do. If you do one hit of acid, you get high and you probably will think you feel the effects for a day or three. It might actually take a couple weeks before you really catch the loop back around or something. I don't know how to put it otherwise. Things would happen during trips that would force me to flash back to weeks before, that makes me wonder if the trip was intentional or predicted somehow. Or, who knows, maybe it's, see, that's the weird part. I'm looking at my scale now, and now it's showing up to 1,000 kilobytes a second, but we're still rolling it under 500. I don't know if those snappy peaks were. I didn't change a flipping thing. Did I tie up all of those tangents? I think I did. I'm going to claim that I did. Tangents cleaned up, like they say in Vegas. Right? The camera, the idea in the morning or later today, probably, maybe for me. It's 3:21. I might end up forcing myself to nap. I don't know that I can because I'm still drinking coffee, and I usually drink, I think, 2 or 3 of these in a day, like 2 in the morning, and then somewhere around 2 or 4 I'll take a smoke break around the complex. Sometimes I do 2 of those. It mostly depends on the weather and my desire to smoke. I'm not going to carry my bong around, and I don't care one way or the other when I go outside or I'm inside, whether I smoke weed or tobacco. But normally when I walk, the intention is to smoke tobacco, because there's something about that smell that bothers landlords more than the smell of weed. It's the fucking stupidest thing. It's like when I moved in here, I'm not sure it was actually still considered legal to partake in cannabis indoors. Partly because it's federally funded, but because it's Colorado law, you can possess weed, but you would have to go either outside of the building or completely off the property. Now, since almost everybody, at least around here, probably smokes or has friends that smokes weed, it's not gonna be a big, nobody trips on it. And even tourists, it's like tourists would rather, like, I've been outside, like I say, I worked at the convention center, I would just couple, what is it? I think Comedy Works is 14th and where we were, no wait,
where we had, well, convention center's like four, it's a bunch of blocks. But the Union Hall was a block. It was half a block up the street and one block down the street. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was less than a block away. Why did I get talking about that? I guess the backtrack. I had in my mind back in the day the idea that I would have someone hold the camera outside of my door, have them knock, have me go to the door, have me open the door, they bring the camera in, they essentially set the camera down there, which is, I mean, if my bed couch wasn't there, I call it a bed couch. It's a couch bed. It's a bed that I make as couch. It's both. I only use it to sleep on because I sit here. I could sit there and watch the big screens, but why? It's funny. There's an old saying about the way Native Americans are different than white men. This is something that I picked up around the Rainbow Gathering Circle. But it says white men build a big fire and stand far away, where an Indian builds a small fire and sits close. And as far as keeping your presence concealed to potential enemies, that's wise. As far as the conservation of resources, that's wise. As far as volume, that's wise. If you had a large party, to individualize those things into smaller, that's wise. Also, if you're sitting around a small fire and sitting close, you're close in proximity, so your voices can be lower. If I were to sit there and look at those big ass screen TVs, that's like being a white guy, because I'm sitting far away watching a big screen. Whereas, and I used to, I mean, my standard setup, it's probably on the YouTube somewhere, was I think 2 of those and 2 of these and a different monitor. Up there I have 2 laptops. One of them was the laptop I had when I moved in here. I didn't have any of these other machines when I moved in here, but in 2000. It works. It's just the screens, like everything's janky about it except the part that's important. The keyboard screwed up. The screen screwed up. It works though if I put a USB mouse on it and I put I'm not sure if I think it has its own functioning Wi-Fi, but I have to put a monitor to it and a USB keyboard and mouse to it, and then it works great. But I gave that monitor away to this 17-year-old kid moved in from Texas. I was under the impression he was more of a homebody. He's not. And although I don't know that I made the mistake. I can say I made a mistake. If I had to do it over again, if I knew I would still have gotten what I thought was my benefit, because I gave him the stuff and I told him I wanted it back, but then I realized that his mom, who I met first, had some pretty serious issues, like the kind of issues you don't want to get involved with, because anyway, it seems strange that a family of 3 would move from Texas to Boulder, live in a motel for 6 months, and then suddenly get housing, when a person like me, who had lived and worked here since 2016, it took me until 2019 before I got approved for a house, and 6 months at least, I think, until I found a place. I'm assuming the only reason she got that is because she lied and said she was resident or has been here for a long time, or otherwise faked it. I mean, it wouldn't be hard if you lived in another place that wasn't here and you wanted to live here. All you have to do is come here, go to the shelter, stay there for a night, sign up for all of the stuff, wait for a year and a half or two maybe. It's gotten better, probably faster, probably more opportunity. I also feel I've seen more low-income housing happening. But the video idea is, I'm not going to start streaming like this, but I'm going to start it as if I'm streaming, okay? Then I'm going to pick that thing up, and I'm going to walk out the door, and I'm essentially going to go get tobacco at the tobacco store, and then weed at the weed store. But it's been at least, I think, a month since I've been telling myself I got to get this, and I've owned that camera since before 420 because I bought it with the intention of using it to record during my first Kill Tony trip at 420 weekend. And I think I went a few other times. I signed up once. The third time I went down there, I had a lot of things, a lot of unexpected things go on that made my... I was there and I could have, but I said, fuck it. It was like one of those trips that was so bad, I was like, you know what, I'm going to pay it and get back on the plane and go home, because fuck it. But I ended up sticking around the area long enough to be like, yeah, I don't think I can see it, and when you see people who have done well on the show that haven't been on the show since the LA days, like I was watching Kill Tony tonight, which is rare. I probably haven't watched their live stream for months, and I used to tune in religiously. But dude's signed up over 50 times until he got picked. For me to sign up once means saving for 3 months to fly there 2 or 3 times in a month, round trip, no room or hotel, just fly there, go there, sign up, drink maybe. I'm wondering if when dude was doing a stream, I noticed it looked as if Mitzi's had changed and added a door as an entrance. When I was there, you had to go into the club door and go sideways to get into Mitzi's. And it wasn't open on Sunday or Monday, which sucked. My first trip, I was there on a Tuesday, I think. And I met some really nice ladies at the bartender thing. One lady who was a vet, she sold merchandise for like pro football teams and stuff when she wasn't doing the bartending. The other one was interesting. She thought I was, what'd she say? I can't remember what she said. I gave her one of my "Don't Follow Me, I'm Pretending to Be Lost" stickers. Oh, profound. That's so profound. I'm like, what's so profound about that? I think it's just funny. Everybody wants to be followed, and I never grew up like that, you know what I mean? But I was a stoner, and in the Midwest, you're a stoner. That means you're a criminal. So the only people that would hang out with you, like I was literally the kid your parents warned you about. You know what I mean? If it wasn't me, it was one of my friends. And as far as I'm concerned, we weren't all that bad. It's not like any of us were like, there was one or two of us that were actually criminals, but you never find that out until they get caught. And if, like me, you're unfortunate, I got caught with a kid who had been doing shit none of us knew about, but he was also his dad was a cop, so nobody thought that he would ever do that shit, right? So his dad was a cop in the, like a county over kind of thing, and through his cop channels, he found out that the county he lived in was interested in his son because supposedly he and this other guy that we all knew was, not doing good things. They were they were robbing people's houses while people were in the house. They're just going up random houses, finding doors, sneaking in like cat burglars, grabbing anything they thought was cool and taking it. CDs, players, whatever, sometimes small stuff. But they got, I don't know, hooked on the thrill of doing this thing. Dad finds out, gets all the kids' stuff. I remember his name was Brian something. Got all the kids' stuff. Drove him, there's a particular bridge in used to be, going over to East St. Louis. And I think it was famous for being in the movie Escape from New York or Escape from LA, one of those two. Anyway, made his kid throw all of the stuff into the Mississippi River off the bridge, essentially destroying all the evidence. When the cops go to bust him, he doesn't have any evidence, so he essentially gets away. Of course, again, none of us knew this, but he lived. Essentially, my dad got a house right off of us, kind of off the backside of an elementary school. We didn't live there when I was in elementary school, mind you, but on the opposite side of the school ground was where this kid lived. So I don't know, the point is, he's just a neighborhood kid. I was hanging out with him, and we met these girls somewhere, I don't remember where, who invited us over to smoke weed with them. Supposedly they had beer from a party they had the night before. We go over, we smoke weed with them. One of the girls goes upstairs. We didn't have cell phones back then. Goes upstairs, and her mom had a second line. She goes to her mom's room, uses that to call the regular phone, pretends to be mom coming home. Girls tell us we have to leave. Essentially, they called us over, said they had beer, flirted with us, smoked our weed, had no beer, told us we had to leave. Okay, one time, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. They tried it a second time. We showed up. Yeah, we had beer. I think we had been drinking tequila that night. We may or may not have smoked weed with them, but we knew they weren't going to share anything with us. So when we left, we knew, or were under the impression that if her mom found out we were there, they would get in trouble. You see what I'm saying? So they were trying to cheat us out of our stuff by being liars and cheats and thieves. So what we did, I thought it was a funny prank. We took Brian's car and drove around the neighborhood that they lived in and got all the umbrellas from people's patio furniture. And then we went to her, it was a condo, and we stuck up all the umbrellas and opened them up as if all the people, we set it up as if there's a party. The point being was there's no way in all of God's green earth that her mom would pull in and not see all of this stuff. So what ended up happening was, again, I didn't know Brian had all this other stuff going on. So the cops realized it was him, and having a relationship with that other county that he lives in, charges us with everything. Like every umbrella, if the people said it was worth $150 or more, it was a felony. No questions asked, no proof, no receipts. How much is your umbrella worth? $150 or less? Yeah, it's cheap. All right, less than $150. So I think we got charged with I'm almost positive the felonies were more than the misdemeanors. So it's like 8 and 7, or 7 and 6, or 8 and 6 felonies and misdemeanors just for the umbrellas. I think looking at the numbers, we were told, I was told, I mean, after that day, I never saw the dude or spoke to him again. At that point, I was almost done with school. I had my own, well, I didn't have my own attorney. My dad was paying for an attorney to keep me out of jail because of this stuff. Because the funny part is, my dad knew that kid. My dad knew that kid's dad was a cop. So he didn't hold it against me for not knowing that kid was up to like crazy shit. So he did what he could to try to get me out of it. And I think he ended up spending about $5,000, and I ended up serving five solid years on paper, meaning probation. But that's why I got sober. That's why I never had a legal drink until I was 30. And a whole lot of my stories are from that time. But if I was sober again, I probably couldn't help but have sober stories. But my first time was like 10 years. My second time was like 6 years. But the second time, I was California sober, meaning that I didn't do hard drugs. I didn't do alcohol. I would smoke cannabis as a medical, requirement, medical user. And I had medical, like, licenses or cards or whatever since 2019 or 20. I got my first card at a club in San Francisco. Back then, their laws with Prop 215, the only thing you needed was your doctor's note. And most people would do is they'd shrink it down a quarter, so then one would make 4. Then they cut it and laminate it, because you had to have your doctor's note on the entrance of your grow. Some places would want you on the plants themselves, but if those, and on your own person, and I think the fourth one would be for you were working, or if you could have a caregiver, which meant you're not employing, you're just giving someone else your permission to grow. They supply your cannabis for you. The reason you would do that is because if you knew somebody like in Humboldt, or Mendocino, or Santa Cruz, or somewhere, anywhere, Boulder, Netherlands, that grew better weed than you could, you give them permission, they grow your plants. Back then, you could do that for 20 people, you know what I mean? Like, I get 5 of those 4 ways, and I could give 20 people permission to grow for me, because nobody would keep track of who had permission. Because the only reason you would need that is if cops showed up, and people had been growing guerrilla style up there forever, so it wasn't really an issue. Where are we at now? We're an hour and a half. Not surprised I didn't promote it. I'm just, again, trying to dial in some stuff. But my test run, I'm figuring I'm going to set up the mic, set up the camera like that. This won't be running. Then I'll take that camera. It normally, during performances that I recorded and other testing that I've done, a full charge on 2 AA batteries generally gives me over 2 hours of recording time. I think I normally might use a 720. For podcasty stuff, I don't use the high res, mostly because uploading or streaming or whatever, it's slower, and people don't really care about the quality anyway. I think most of the time the most important quality is that of the sound.
The video is
just extra stuff, and it's important that the two are synced together. So, that being said, the idea is to essentially take this, do one of those, kind of freeze gestures, like when you snap. Some videos do that you snap it, it's the next day in the series. But I'm going to start from recording that. We'll get up, we'll go out the door in reverse, as if we're getting here, because the very first part of that clip is going to be flipped in reverse as the very first part of a intro, meaning that future streams will start with me coming into my little studio space from the outside, but in reality it's a flipped recording of me leaving in reverse backwards. So when I reverse it, it looks like it's forwards. See what I'm saying? Then once I'm outside, I'll probably, I won't have any smokes because this is the last one. Well, I could scrounge crumbs, but I ain't gonna. It's almost 4. I still got weed. I think I got. What did you say? That's enough for a couple of joints actually. But I've been using my phone trying to conserve. Is that the right word? Conserve. Trying to be conservative about it. The other thing I've acknowledged that I honestly forget. Normal people, I'm not. I get that. I was more normal when I was able to work. It was difficult not working. I got playing video games mostly because I needed something to keep my mental stimulus. I went from when you work 4, 8, 12 hour shifts, like if it's a set convention, there's a set routine, kinda. There's load in, there's setup, there's the convention, there's tear down, there's load out. The way it comes out, the way it goes in, vice versa. If it's a single event, or if it's a theater event, I think we did Peter Pan. I remember we did Blue Man Group. That was one of the cooler ones. But when touring acts come in, it's in and out of their trucks in one night. In other times, some performances or groups might perform for a weekend. Even though we are working on a pool of resource of workers, everybody has their departments or expertise and their pay rates for, it only makes sense. You want to get paid the most for the best work. The best paying job is a rigger. They make about, I think, $10 more than what I would make as an AV or stagehand electrician. And next to that, you would have a carpenter. Then you have all kinds of other, what would you call it, designations. If you're a lazy fat ass, you can probably easily get a job as a forklift operator. But as far as I recall, they don't make as much per hour as I would as an electrician or maybe even a carpenter. I rarely worked as, the only reason I'd work as a carpenter is if they needed somebody and they didn't have enough electricians. I'd still work as an electrician. I just knew that I was getting paid as a carpenter because you don't waste skill if you got it. And there's a lot of people that are really good workers, but they don't have any skill or experience. They show up, they push stuff. One of the lowest level jobs is rolling carpet, which means if you've never seen the convention when it's empty, it's empty. It's nothing. It's completely like, imagine a football field stadium without the turf, without chairs, just cement. All, and then a roof, of course, completely bare. Whenever there's any event, carpet is rolled out that's when the people that throw the convention rent the space, they make arrangements with the convention to have their requirements or specifications met to set the place up before any of their vendors or guests show up. So those people set up the outline of it, right? All the carpets, all the floors, all of this, all of that. Then the people that have the booths would show up. Each one of those, who knows how it's set up. Point being is no matter, unless it was the day after a specific gig and you were returning to location for that specific gig, every single job was somehow different. You're doing the general same thing, but the location would be different. The things would be different. Like everything's different. So it's very fresh in the mind. It's not boring and stagnant, even though it's kind of repetitive once you've done it for a while. Most of the stagehands that have been there, I learned it at 2.5, 3 years, but most old time stagehands in the union only work 4 to 6 months of a year because they've figured out that there are certain times of the year there are a lot of great paying, and certain times of the year there's just partial paying and horrible paying. When you claim unemployment, it's similar to claiming disability, SSDI. It's based on your earnings, and if your earnings are high when you claim, you get more. So they work all of the really busy months earning a lot, claiming on the empty 6 months, earning what based on their busy months. You see what I'm saying? If you were to work, then not work, then take one of the crappy gigs, then sign up for unemployment, your unemployment is based on the crappy gig, not on the busy time. So they figured out how the system works and they used it for their benefit. I personally had a hard time milking the clock. In a professional stagehand environment, the goal was loaded in quick, loaded out quick, bust your ass hard. So everything was done early. If you weren't early, you weren't on time, you were late. If you're on time, you're late. If you're not early, you're late. So be early and you'll be on time. 15 minutes is the rule in stagehand, and most people I would try to be there 30 minutes, sometimes an hour early, just so I could, because again, it's always a different location. Sometimes, who knows who you're checking in with. Sometimes it's a union person. Almost always it's a union person, but there are other people that are running it. Those people are just, I don't know how to put it, list takers. They get paid a decent amount to show up and sit around their ass, but all they really do is take lists, name, you do this, name, you do that. And you have to understand that stagehand work, whether it's lights, whether it's sound, whether it's video, whether it's audio, projection, it's all the same thing in that it was kind of made and designed for and by musicians, which understand if you're a rock star and you're drinking and partying, it needs to be simplified. If you're just not that bright, or it's dark in the space normally on a stage, so it's difficult to guarantee that you're plugging the right thing into the right thing. However, it only has one way to connect. You know what I mean? Like, a microphone only connects one way. Headphones only one way. Same thing with those types of power controllers, etc. Like, there's a lot of LED boards, like those really big, like if you wanted a 50 foot by 100 foot, 50 foot by 100 foot LED screen, the signal is usually, or the power is often run, or the controller signal is often run with XLR cables that interconnect it. The really fancy ones are run with things that look almost identical to computer networking cable. And then you essentially hang a rack and then click all these panels in that lock together. You raise the rack, click all those panels in that lock together, then you connect this screen to that screen. And then you just build that way, daisy chain them all down. Then at the bottom, of course, it daisy chains across to a controller that goes to the video mixing board. That computer machine figures everything else out. As long as all of the different screens are perfectly functional. Each screen essentially represents a space of pixels on TV, so it's really easy to scale. I think one of the things when I was talking about that, we did sometimes big companies come in and kind of buy out the convention center, and or they'll rent the convention center, and then they'll buy out certain ballrooms for the higher ups of the company, like the special VIP thing. And for one of them was John Legend. I think he's a Grammy winner. But anyway, we set up stage, sound, this, that. I remember instruments being there, and I remember it's interesting because for my first year or so, I didn't meet anybody that knew what the hell they were doing. Like everybody was like, "What? How did you get this job, dude?" And I was like kicking myself in the foot because I was told probably a year before I started doing anything about it, I should go do it. You know what I mean? It's like one of my first weeks at Sancho's Broken Arrow, Cool Facts. I met it's a deadhead bar. So I met some guys that were stagehands. Across the street from Sancho's was the Fillmore. Was it the Fillmore? I think it's Fillmore. Anyway, there's a concert place there. So he kept telling me to go do it, and I'd be like, yeah, but. Eventually I got there. I was like, dude, it was a challenge, and it was difficult because you have to understand I was going there as whenever I start a new place, I'm like, new guy, I'm humble, I don't know, I'll learn, and I go at it with that attitude completely. Anything, even if I've had experience, because that's how you learn, is by having that heart and mind of a child, so to speak. So I go there, and it's like they did stuff that I don't know how to put it. It was embarrassing to think they called themselves stagehands. Because if you're a musician, there are certain rules you just never break. Like, never. Like, you never put carpet over cables. Never. You just don't do it. You run the cable around the outside. You don't. Now, if you have a cable track, a thing designed specifically for that, that's what it's for, and you lay the cable in there. You never put just roll a cable over, or just stringing gaff tape just down to stick it down. Because people walk on that cable, it snaps, it crackles, it pops. You don't know where in 150, 200 foot line might be broken, so you have to tear it all up and replace it if it ever goes bad. It's just the stupidest thing ever, and they do it all the time. But, eventually I found my niche. It was easier, and I got paid more for doing the computer stuff than I did the, stagey stuff. And growing up in theaters, it was a lot of the people that I work with they were impressed with themselves for having access to those places, but they were, to me, places I grew up in. I don't know if that makes much sense, but when you sing ensemble and honor choir and all this other stuff, we did performances with orchestras, we did performances with bands, we did stage, we did theater, we did I don't know what you call it, jazz ensemble. I guess I don't want to say show tunes, but that kind of vaudevillian, what do you call it when you mix things up, like a mashup of stage performance, but musical stage performance, obviously. So I had done all of that. So the working at the orchestra, the theater where the orchestra is, was cool. more amazing in that how do they get away with doing the stuff that they do there? Like, it's crazy sketchy. The electronics and the people that I was working with when I was there, just like, what? And like, dangerous. Like, we're 30 feet over a suspended floor on a suspended ceiling, and people are like walking around like it's concrete. I'm like, I don't know. It was, anyway, uh, those were some interesting. I don't know how I even got onto that topic. Part of it is I'm just kind of testing my bandwidth. Uh, you have to do a large enough window to see if, like, I've heard it regularly or seen it regularly that my meters are moving, meaning something's happening somewhere that's changing the signal, but it ain't me. Like, I'm not moving any mouse, I'm not moving controllers. I'm just sitting here I keep getting distracted between my bong and my coffee. But of all of the meters on that scale, the network meter is the one that changes the most. If that noise reminds you of Sublime, we could be friends. I'm not sure. I think it might be 40 Ounces of Freedom, the first song, Smoke Two Joints. I know they got a bong sound in there. It's not this kind of bong. I know that it might be a graphics, but they had a specific name for it. But essentially, it's a polyurethane plastic bong. And it has a little carb on the back of it. Oh, I forgot I had a camera. This is a slide bong, obviously. It's glass on glass. That fancy hippie shit. But yeah, part of this is I doubt people wonder why in Boulder the Colorado Buffaloes are kind of a big deal. Well, I think in football and in the nation they're kind of a big deal. Um, but people wouldn't question or ask somebody like Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, or any of the football team. You know, the least talented of any of the football team. They wouldn't say, "Why are you doing that when no one's around to watch you?" And right, that sounds almost silly because we understand it's normal for people to train or practice on their own before they do it in front of and or in between a live audience. Keeping, for example, like contemplating just natures of having my scenes all in proper functioning order. I could modify them if I choose, but essentially, I'm just learning how to function all of these things so that I have a consistent. It's not a product because it's not for sale. I'm not. I'm not sure how to put it. I think I signed up for monetization because I was hoping to get a sponsor so I could make it so nobody would, so YouTube wouldn't add ads to it. Since like 2018, I guess, was the first time I thought about doing podcasting or something like that. It might have been 17. Um, Things have changed like drastically, probably comparatively. Um, but I remember setting up that stuff. but I'm also aware that I'm not allowed to earn any income. So if they told me that I earned anything, I wouldn't be able to do anything with it. I wouldn't be able to accept it. I wouldn't be able to take it and spend it. I just have to pretend it doesn't happen. But I don't have to worry about that because that's not my motivation. Treasures aren't left for everybody. Treasures are left for the people that are smart enough to find them. And I'm at almost 2 hours. But my point, the reason I brought up the buffs and the football practice is I have probably spent the last 3 years, whereas with the exception of a couple months when I had a lady, she pretended to be a therapist, because long story short, the medical community, especially mental health, is full of a bunch of sneaky shark types that predominate their existence by taking advantage of disabled people and manipulating them to do what they want. Because most of those people aren't mentally capable of comprehending that they do that only because it's a way that they can make the most money on the least effort for providing the fewest types of resources. But yeah, hopefully this time we've learned our lesson and we won't have to break another finger to teach ourselves that. But a long story short is, since that time, I might speak. I'm just going mentally through my daily routine or my schedule. One of these pouches will last me. 2 of these pouches last more than a week. One doesn't last a week. An ounce of weed used to be I'd get an ounce of weed for a week. Prices change. My rent went up, my utilities went up. Again, this is over a 4-year period, but as of today, it's tough just to afford half of that a week. So my point being is that I might go to a store to get tobacco, in which I will have to speak to somebody, and I will probably say less than 3 sentences. Or I will go to the weed store, in which I will speak to somebody, and I might say 10 sentences, maybe more, but I won't speak more than 5-10 minutes that I'm there, right? I don't speak to myself. I don't normally talk out loud, so that means on a given week, I might speak in total an hour. And that's probably an overestimate. This to me is working out. This to me is training. This to me is forcing myself to do stuff that I don't like doing because it makes it easier to do stuff similar to this when I'm enjoying it. The voice is something like I grew up in. The only real class I was good at, or classes, was sports and music. I wasn't good with math or English or history. I was good at woodshop. I was good at music naturally. I don't know why. I could do stuff by ear. I was good enough at singing by ear that I could pretend to read. I can read music, but slowly. But if I learn the piece by ear, I never have to learn to read the music. I'm like lazy like that. It's like I can sit there and go B, C, A sharp, D7, understand or I can just let the instructor, or director, or conductor, play the notes. I match the pitch. It's done. It's like, why would I go through all that when I can just hear it and do it? And so being aware of that, like I'm aware of, I have guitars. I play them sometimes when the inspiration or feel hits me. Sometimes I just do it because the inspiration isn't hitting me, and I'm trying to get things shifted out. Maybe I got something stuck in my head, a song, an idea, whatever. Um, but even in that situation, I'm not speaking a lot. I'm not singing so much. I guess there are times that I sing and I'm probably not conscious of it. So that's some exercise. My point is my voice was exercised a lot when I was working because you're always communicating generally. Rarely, unless it's during a performance and you're like in stage blacks, like our uniforms required clothing was just always black because if you were working a live performance, you had to be in stage black. Other times it kind of didn't matter, but if you were in it, you were good. When you're on disability, like I was, anything like when you're working, clothing doesn't cost against your earnings, but all your earnings count against you. So like I'm still, I think, $5,000 or $7,000 in the hole, like that I owe to Social Security because of back payments, and they're only allowed to take 10%. So I live on 10% of the minimum, and the minimum I think is 923. So I probably get a 60/50. I don't know for sure something. I think of it with if I had 850 and it's 250 for rent and utilities, which is roughly a third. 850 minus 50 minus 2 is 600. 25 bucks a pouch, so it's 50 a week or 200 a month. About the same in that for weed is 400 bucks a month, and then 200 bucks for whatever I might need or try to save up for. When I gave away the monitor and I found a bunch of stuff by the dumpster, one of those things included a laundry machine, like a clothes washer. It's a little apartment portable unit, but it works great. It was free. It would have cost $3 something or more on Amazon, and all I had to do was spend the. I think I ended up spending like $50 on adapters from the hardware store to get it to connect. I had about like 3 different adapters to make it work, but I got it to work, and I spent like a week just washing everything because since COVID, we have a laundry machine here, quarter machine downstairs, but I don't know what it is. Maybe it's overuse, but I don't have a lot of clothes, and I was getting clothes back with big tears and shit in it from getting torn up in the machine. So I just started doing everything in my bathtub. It took longer. It was more work, but like I say, I went from being really busy to have nothing to do. So it's like I don't mind spending 3 days cooking a pot of beans and getting it just right and turning a bag of beans into, a few jars of different kinds of beans, because then I have different sorts of meals. It saves money. It gives me something to do, and I don't have to. For a while, I'm not sure. There was definitely a period where I didn't own a can opener. I just made everything from scratch, and also during COVID, I didn't want to go out anyway, like go outside. So if my groceries came in containers small enough, it took longer before my trash bag was full that I had to take it outside. Since I wasn't eating a lot of meat, so I didn't have dead stuff. I didn't have rotted stuff. I didn't have none of the
what I assume normal people would have, but no food waste in the trash at all. Like even my recyclables, I clean them, I rinse them, but I made a point never buying anything that included non-recyclable materials, and then I just find what works and I stick with it. I can probably I can fit all the trash I normally have in a month of groceries. Maybe 2 bags, but more likely 1 bag, and it's all recyclables. I say 2 bags because, like, recently I got two pizzas, and those are kind of big boxes. But everything else is like I have 2 jars of spaghetti sauce, and everything else is either a plastic bag or bulk or something in the refrigerator. Um, and even my containers, like I reuse my tea jars or coffee jars or pizza sauce jars as canning, because a lot of them have measurements or official Bell or other top line ball top brand jars. But yeah, 2 hours is good enough training for me on this doohickey. Um, Plus, I'm kind of tired of the windows being closed. Uh, I'm not sure if I don't always hear people speaking outside, um, but I closed the window mostly because I don't want to be blasting my stupid, ranting out even a cracked window. So I closed the window and I closed the door because it also reduces noise. Um, and like I say, when you're testing stuff, for me, I'm obviously a little bit of a nerd. Having something like this really take up all of my space as far as what I'm looking at to see what's, actually happening. Like I look at this peak here, and this is still half of my usual bandwidth, right? Because 900 is just under 1,000, which is a megabyte per second. And earlier you saw that I was getting 17, which I said was rare. Normally 1.5 or 2 is pretty common. But like I've said, I have ADD and I get distracted and I forget stuff. So sometimes I could test with Windows, sometimes I could test with Ubuntu. I've done both intentionally with the same speed test, and the Ubuntu is always faster. Because if it's lighter software and better connection and not trying to spy on you, it's not as slow. Just the operating system itself runs at about a third the resources that Windows does. Oh, start the test. When I see that spinning, I think it's going and it's not. Yeah, see this 5 and 4 and 3, that's normally really good bandwidth for my apartment. Of course, upload matters for streaming more than download. Download matters for, well, streaming, if I'm including online content. That's the part that struggles my connection and makes my videos kind of sketchy. I know a lot of people do live broadcasts with the intention of interaction, and that was I had many a day speaking into the void. It wasn't until I connected with the semi-popular video game that I started getting like interactions or followers or people I was communicating with the chat. But the good part was I was intending to do a specific something that it was important. It came off well, but I have to do something long enough to get past being sucky at it. Just at least get to where I feel proficient at it.
that I think for most people would be considered good. Like there I see a point 0.8 megabyte upload. That's more normal for it being screwed up. I don't know if that makes sense. It usually uploads a lot better than that. I know it's almost, to see if I saw it reversed, that would make more sense, but it's not. It's just late night weird. And I can reconnect this 3 times and get 3 different ratings. But I switched with this one because the other one that I had been using would always, like, you'd have to wait for 15 different ads to pop up just to see what your speed connection was. Yeah, see, that's normal. Really shitty. The 17 megabytes a second was a fluke. And while I'm doing the testing, I'm getting more drop frames. I'm still at least at 1.9. Right before I was doing this testing, we were at 0 point something. But yeah, that was good enough workout. I'm done with that. That's still going, but that's just so I have it documented for myself. This is still going, so I gotta find my stop streaming thing. So yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna be going on. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna go to the pot shop. I can't show you inside the pot shops, but I can. I don't know. I probably won't make it that far, to be real honest. I'll probably pocket the camera by the time I get there. I don't know if it's saying obviously is correct, but I'm not much for trying to draw attention to myself. I'm almost anti that. I'm programmed to not. Like when you grow up as a criminal and a pothead, the goal is to not be seen. And like literally growing up, my mom was just kind of a drunk and abusive, but the rule in the house was children are better seen and not heard. You could be seen around, but they didn't want to hear from you. I'm dyslexic, so I was regularly heard, but then I wouldn't be seen. But anyway, the intention is to set it up so that I leave in reverse, and as I'm going out, I might cut that clip just on principle to make it easy. So then I can just reverse it and use it, and it still matches with the color and the texture and whatever. But I might just do it in reverse, flip the camera, light my cigarette, get on with it, do my walk, and test the microphone and the camera as I walk and as wind or whatever normally happens. Go to the pot shop, well, go to Sinclair, the gas station, get tobacco, go to the weed store, get herb, boogie back, easy peasy. Probably will have paid rent by then, so that'd be $250 plus. I might do 2 pouches. That's another 50, 300 plus another something. So 6 minus 3. I'll be halfway through my savings tomorrow, and it's just now the first, and the money's not in the bank. Like half the money spent before it's, oh wait, a third of the money, more than a third. Well, a third goes to rent. Another third I'm talking about for tobacco and weed tomorrow. But the point of it is, I was laying in bed realizing I probably wasn't going to fall asleep anytime soon. So I might as well take pleasure in the hour of gonzo journalism, the magic hour as they call it. Do some work. I put in 2 hours of work, documented and up on the YouTube. But the idea is to, use battery power. That's the part I didn't get to with this kid that I was trying to help. I say it's easier to stream because it is, and it's faster. And the amount of information that gets put up on YouTube in the time it takes to stream, because it's using a specific type of YouTube, whatever algorithm or compression or whatever makes it work. If I stream an hour video, it goes up in an hour. If I upload a video, it takes a number of hours to upload, then a number of hours to process, then possibly even more time to become available to watch. That means that it takes 2 to 3 days just in the uploading process before the video can go live. However, I mentioned you might be able to connect that camera to an iPhone. The weird part is it's a USB-C to USB-C. And I'm also not sure if iPhone or Android has software to use external cameras. Probably, but I've not done it. Point is, connecting that camera to a phone would easily allow you to stream, but it's not something that I've done. I've streamed from phones and I've recorded 2 cameras, and then while viewing that video, stream it. That enables me to essentially watch the video as it's uploading, and the upload is 5 to 10 times faster, the process. Because again, normally you would record it, you would edit it, you would render it. That takes a day or 2 depending on your computer. Then you would upload it another day or 2. Then you wait, and etc. A couple, 3 days should be your standard window of process time. That's just to get the video to be seen. If instead I take that, I record it, I bring it back, like take the clip of the first however many seconds it is that I'm going out the apartment in reverse, with full intention that when I cut that, I can flip it and it'll look as if I'm showing up to the apartment and then going in and then coming and sitting back where this is. That's the cut point, right? Because that, I put the thing back in there when I get back and I hit record or hit stream. Then I play the video until it gets to the point where the camera is back where it started, right? I flip that part in reverse. Then I play the video, and then I turn that camera on. Suddenly my live stream is tagged on to the end of what I recorded, with the very first part that I recorded flipped in reverse, because I can use the OBS and other programs to flip it, and it's really short. So I can just flip that part and then play that, like render it 10 minutes at most, use it as a little video clip. Then I'll use OBS to put scenes for the first clip, second clip, third clip, because as you change in the scenes, it enables me anyway, to do a fade scene transition. You can do wipes and other stuff, but I just stick to the way it's set up because it's easy and it's less distracting. But the repetition, the consistency, etc., generally helps. And another thing I've been a proponent of for, I don't know, a pretty good long while. I may say 20 years, that might be overdoing it, but maybe more. Don't give advice unless you take it first. So when people in the world motivate me to try to be helpful, a lot of times
I realized that's the universe suggesting to me what I might do. I'm not sure if that I end up giving people advice that I need to take more than they need to hear it, which means me being willing to help them actually allows me to use them to help me. Being dyslexic and ADD, it's a trip. And plus, I'm a stoner. I still got like half a bowl there. I guess I'm good. That's the thing I like about weed. You know, it's like people would look at me or you see me doing this and you go, "Oh, dude smokes a lot," and I really don't. I smoke enough weed. I smoke just enough weed to make me not want to smoke weed. You know what I mean? Like, I would roll a joint, I smoke it until it goes out, because I'll end up sitting there holding it, talking or doing something, being distracted. It just happens. And I can't, I'm ADD and not just stoned because I stopped the weed. I still do the ADD stuff. I've tried, trust me. It does help me focus the ADD, but I can't seem to not be ADD. My problem isn't inability to do one thing, to do something. My problem is I can't do one thing unless I'm doing three things. Like, too simplicity is boring and I don't find it interesting. I can't do it. But if I make that thing in my head divided into three things, I can do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this helps me, this exercises me, but it also puts out there a past version of me in the future that myself or others could look back upon to see the progress. Like, I can just feel the progress and experience the progress in that it took me less than a couple of test runs, which I think were on my other channel, to dial in again USB. And this is like, shoot, the last time I did this stuff, it was a couple years ago, and I was like 2 or 3 operating system rollbacks and maybe 10 different versions of OBS. I was probably using a 23 or 24 version back then. Now it's already up to 30.021. So yeah, lots of stuff did change, but it's mostly pretty much the same. And again, I don't look at it maybe the way others look at it, because what I see is a digital video mixing board. Granted, it has audio, but the intention is most of it is to do video with the audio. I could sit here and mix audio doing this. I could have clips that were set up and timed right so I could DJ using it kind of in a rough way, because it's a complete mixer and I can add effects. I can do fun stuff with that. But most of the time I'm looking to, how do you put it, I do it to a point where I get bored and forget about doing it. That's when I check my levels and define where everything should be. Because that's after, like, I'm not sure it matters how many times you do something. Every time I go to dial in a new system, and when I mention the operating systems, I mean, most people probably have their machine set up in a certain way and it stays that way for years. My machines probably don't last 6 months or a year. Like, within a year, I've gathered every non-operating system file, put it in one folder. Usually I call it clean desktop. I just gather everything, I dump it in there. And every time I clean, I just dump everything into that one place. So when I'm tired of the way the operating system's working, I just grab that one folder, I drag it to it, and wipe the drive, I reinstall the operating systems, Windows, and then Ubuntu, Linux, Mint, and then I start from scratch. Linux does fine by itself, but not always. It's not like I'm doing it to start from scratch, but like I get I get motivated to do stuff. Like I said, I've had 4 machines, and they were all functional, running Grand Theft Auto 5 streaming, no problem. Um, it won't run. None of my machines will run Cyberpunk. They're not good like that, especially without bandwidth, data, dedicated internet connection. But anyway, point is, some video games and or programs and or functions benefit greatly from an SSD hard drive, whether it's big data files, big image files, big audio files, or in video gameplay, they have to read and write back and forth a lot. I also probably have 2 or 3, no, actually I have more than that. I got 5, 6, 50. 6.5 terabytes or 6 terabytes and 5 gigabytes. Oh, 500 gigabytes. So I have 1500 internal gigabytes and 5 terabytes external gigabytes of storage. But anyway, point is I took my other machines and I put all the resources into 2 machines. Mostly because I wanted access to those better hard drives, and I didn't have a reason currently for those other 2 machines to have hard drives and functioning operating systems. One, I don't have a whole lot of monitors that I want to use, and 2, what's the point? One of the earlier things I was saying about this computer that I'd forgotten about is I'm aware, I think I mentioned i7 7700K for that machine. 9700K for this machine is the very best processor that latest generation it will run. This one can only do 4 cores, 8 multi-threads possibly. This one could do up to 10 cores, but it's not as good as the 8-core multi-thread processors. My point is, one of those processors might cost $200, but I've found complete computers with the power supply, with the CD-ROM, with the SSD hard drive, with RAM, etc., and that same exact processor for half the price. It's stupid. I told you I started this off. It is stupid. But for 150, 200 bucks, I might be able to buy the processor that's the best for this machine. And I get a motherboard, a power supply, RAM, cables, SATA, like all this other extra stuff. And because it's of the better architecture, I'll probably end up using that motherboard and those components from my G1, because it will be essentially a G2 or better. That enables me to take the processor out of it, put it into my motherboard, and then still use the case for other uses. And I save half the price on the processor in the meantime. I don't know. I mean, the fact that I can figure it out and find it's not like it's a compliment or saying anything about my intelligence, although sometimes it seems like it does. The reality is, if I can see it, like, I look at things differently. I started off earlier talking about the microphones I need to get, or type of microphones I need to get. And there was the one that was $299.99, marked down 90%, $29.99, right? And we saw identical ones, priced $19.99 on Amazon, right? So anyway, whenever I see a big 98, like a huge mark down, my first thought is, that means they've been overcharging me 70% for, or 100. See what I mean? When you realize that when they mark it down and they sell it, they're not doing it for free. At the very, very, well, usually at the very least, they're doing it at cost. On occasion, they might do it to clear space, which might cost them money